Hi, everybody. Welcome to our session on integrated solutions for vegetation management. My name's Steve Benner. I'm your moderator. With us today, we have two esteemed presenters, George Mostakis, VP of Enterprise Solutions with Cityworks, and Andy Hewlett, who's a Senior Account Manager with Trimble, talking to us from the UK. I'm going to turn it over to those guys to introduce themselves in more depth, and we'll get to it. If you have questions, please let us know as we go. We'll try to get to them, and hopefully we'll have some time at the end to finish up. So with that, guys, go ahead.
Excellent. Thanks, Steve, and good afternoon, everybody, or good morning. Before we begin, we just have to put a little bit of legalese in front of you that we may make some statements that are forward-facing, forward-looking, and we just want to make sure that nobody on this webcast or anything makes any buy decisions on the basis of any of that, okay? So with that out of the way, my name is George Mostakis. I'm Vice President of Enterprise Solutions and Partnerships for Cityworks. I've been with Cityworks since 1996. And throughout that time, I've been involved in the inception and the growth of Cityworks and where we've taken it, the various markets that we've taken it into. And with me, I'm joined by Andy Hewlett. Andy?
Hey, good morning, good afternoon, folks. I'm Andy Hewlett, a Senior Account Manager with Trimble. I've been part of the kind of the energy side now for the past 7 or 8 years, mainly focused on utilities and their asset models for the vegetation management space. So this is kind of an introduction to everything that we've kind of been working on for the last 6 or 7 years.
Excellent. Thanks, Andy. And just want to give some context as to where our organization sits within Trimble. You all know Trimble as a leading pioneer of GPS technology and a whole host of other technologies as well. You see the global business segments that make up the business: construction, geospatial, resource and utilities, and transportation. We are in a group named Utilities and Public Administration. We serve Cityworks business and the team that Andy is a part of as well, Trimble Energy. We serve water, energy, and local governments. I'm going to hand it back over to Andy. Andy's going to walk us through the next several slides here.
All right, so
Andy, I don't. Oh, there we go.
Yeah, I muted me for some reason. So the solutions that we've been working on cover all phases of the kind of life cycle of vegetation management. We've got new line design and planning. We've got the engineering construction, so kind of confirming those models, making sure they're operating at the right temperatures, right clearance zones. We've got operations maintenance, looking at how do we make sure that they're kind of running efficiently to the right specifications, making sure that we've got kind of contractors out there managing our vegetation, making sure the line clearances are kept compliant. And then we support the analysis and optimization phase. So this is looking at how do we make things more efficient, or optimize power flows, or contractor cutting contracts. So we kind of enveloping this entire life cycle across the kind of the suite of utilities and solutions that we offer. So what are we doing here today? And George, I don't know if your slides are showing. Everyone see? Can you see the slides?
We can't see the slides. George should have.
I'm here. Hang on.
Okay.
I'm not sure what happened. Sorry about that, everyone. No, I'm not at all sure what happened. Can we see the slides again?
Oh, there we go.
Okay.
That's it. Slides are back.
Yeah.
Okay.
And George,
back.
you're muted too. There's like an echo coming from you.
Okay. Should I mute myself, or did you mute me?
I muted you, but you should mute yourself.
Okay. Give me 1 second.
All right, so why are we here today? We're looking at the vegetation management challenge and the risk of the trees to the utility network. This is kind of the single or top two OPEX item across the kind of utilities business. And this is kind of where a lot of the money goes in maintaining that supply of electricity to the consumers, to the customers, but also contributes to the safe and reliable operating of those assets. So across the utilities, there's a wide range of initiatives and processes that happen day in, day out. And we're trying to take an all-encompassing view on the vegetation management challenge and provide a suite of tools to enable you to kind of make the right decisions at the right times, using a variety of different technologies. So moving on to here, we've got the Trimble Vegetation Manager. And this is a software solution that we've created using kind of the best pieces of the solutions within Trimble. It's made of 3 pieces, and I'll give you a quick overview now before we jump into the details. So we've got the LiDAR Analyzer. This is a desktop tool that we use within the utilities or within utility partners to analyze large volumes of LiDAR data sets. So this is LiDAR LAS files captured from the air, from a mobile device, from a drone, and then using the utility GIS information to then create a 3D network model and analyze the vegetation, the ground clearances, and any kind of external features like buildings or street furniture against that LiDAR set to kind of check for compliance or regulatory issues within this desktop environment. So the output of this is kind of a highly attributed network model with a whole bunch of proximity or risk information on top of that. Previously, this is kind of huge Excel spreadsheets that you kind of get back from LiDAR vendors. How close is the trees? How close are the spans or the buildings on a particular line or against a particular structure or canopy? So this is the assessment tool. We've got the program optimizer. So this is where you can take the outputs of that. You can look at that visually. You can start querying this in the kind of a familiar GIS environment. And then you can start looking at how to design an efficient program to go out and manage those risks on the network. So you can look at cost or risk or compliance and start making dashboards and programs from that to go and action out and get the crews working on in the field. And then the third part of this is the operational manager. And this is the bit where you're kind of tracking, managing, making sure that work in the field is getting executed, audited, and driving the performance of the contractors or the internal staff. So this is kind of the overview of the mobile device, the kind of operational dashboards, making sure stuff gets done, and then there's a way to track that, audit that, and get that through into your existing systems. The whole thing is built on top of the ArcGIS platform and integrates, the modules 2 and 3 are kind of key parts of the Cityworks tools. So why are we bringing all these kind of bits together? Well, the idea is that we're trying to drive benefits for you, kind of reduce all those kind of inefficiencies within the process and bring a suite of tools that really optimize that flow from kind of getting that LiDAR information at the beginning, doing a whole assessment of all the kind of infringements or the kind of compliance issues across the network, being able to make a program that kind of fits to your budgets. So when you get this information back, obviously you can understand the risks across the whole network, but choosing which ones to fix now or which ones to fix later or to build into a kind of an annualized program, that's what these tools are kind of helping to do. And the whole idea of this is it's optimizing getting the stuff out there, but also reducing the risk to the network, whether that's from environmental factors, a safety factor, and ultimately that's driving down cost in the future. You haven't got to do as much reactive work. You're being proactive about managing those risks against the network. So what does this look like from a kind of a ROI perspective? So we've worked with a few different utilities now, and some of the kind of the hard benefits, the tangible benefits, if you like, you can start seeing that we're driving down the regulated cost. We're driving down the cost of doing this work in the field by optimizing, getting crews out there, grouping packages of work together to reduce on-site visits. Also, a big chunk of cash saved on the litigation avoidance. So this is where there's potentially kind of legal issues or access issues. Being able to kind of have this information ahead of time without having to kind of do an on-site inspection can save you kind of quite a chunk in that area. But on the soft side, there's also, it helps to kind of update the GIS records. It helps to kind of show what you're doing with the budget you've got, how many kind of infringements are out there on the network, what we've been doing to kind of clear those through, and just helping you to kind of sleep better at night. So it's the kind of the all-encompassing overview from the start to the finish. So now I'm just going to jump in and tell you a bit more about the LiDAR Analyzer, and then I'm going to hand over to George to walk you through the program optimizer and the operational insights. So the LiDAR optimizer, sorry, the LiDAR Analyzer originated from a tool that we used to use internally when we were doing the kind of the assessment of LiDAR data against the power line models. We'd go out and collect that data and produce kind of Excel sheet reports back to the engineers to get the information out to them. That evolved over time, and working with a kind of a wide range of clients all over the world, we've now kind of got this integrated solution that allows us to process huge swaths of LiDAR data through the system and produce a highly attributed GIS information model. So the solution itself uses kind of a 5-step process. We take the LiDAR information, and that's from a third party, or data you've already got, or a kind of a specialized flight to go out and collect this information. Once we've got the information, we then generate a tree inventory. So this is like a canopy map of all the trees around the assets. We generate the network model. This takes the surveyed assets, to the 3D wire strings and the poles that you can see in the LiDAR data, and it builds this relational model based on what it can see in the field. Then we do the conflation step. This is matching what we've seen in the field, what's in that LiDAR information, to the GIS network records. And so this is where you start saying that the 2 poles in the field with a span on is actually span 12 on circuit 57 or whatever. So this conflation exercise is where you're kind of linking back the real world to your GIS information. And that ranges based on utilities. So if the GIS information is all super accurate and completely up to date, that conflation exercise is fairly automated with very little manual correction. Where you've got kind of older records, or maybe they haven't been kind of tagged geospatially with a high accuracy, this conflation tool allows you to kind of apply rules to kind of match assets together and go through there and fix any that have been kind of incorrectly matched or no matches we're able to find. Once you've got that analysis, the conflation done, you can then worry about the analysis. So this is where the heavy lifting gets done. And in the analysis stage, we're looking at assessing each of those vegetation points or building points or ground points against that 3D model that we've created, and then tagging a whole bunch of attribution into the data model schema. So this includes things like, if we look at how close vegetation is, it also kind of starts putting information on how to describe that. So is it above the line? Is it below the line? Is it to the side? Is it kind of in that mow spray zone, rather than that like overhanging branch, which might require kind of heavy equipment to go out and manage, or might require a de-energization of the line before you can go and remove that. So by kind of putting all this information onto the spans, you can start to get a kind of a bigger picture of where that information, of where the kind of risks are and what you need to do in order to rectify that. So if we just jump onto the next one, this is looking at the configurability. Here you kind of use this tool. You can put in your business rules. So what are your clearance zones? What are your fall-in requirements? Do you take account of any minimum clearance zones, or are you doing it as a pure fall-in? Along with looking at the kind of the radial zones. If we jump to the next slide, this is where you can set up the different radial rings. So you can start defining, I've got these different zones for these different voltages, and they change based on conductor type, whether it's insulated or not. And also start looking at the tower configurations and applying additional safety buffers. So in here, you can do it based on just the wire positions, or you can add those extra safety buffers to make sure that it's kind of encompassing the whole tower when you do that analysis. So once we've got that analysis, we can then start to kind of exploit that. You've done the heavy lifting, you've got all that information, and you can start putting information on here to start summarizing that proximity information. So instead of a span just saying the closest tree is 6 feet away, you can start saying on each span, I actually have a good understanding of the vegetation on the section. So on here, you can see the kind of red zone this is zone 1. You've got kind of a little bit of red infringement, but then if you look at the next level, the category 2 length, you actually understand that, okay, if I can go and chop those little pieces of red, and I will get it into kind of category 2 compliance, but actually this span has got a lot of category 2, so maybe we should think about kind of cutting that as we go. All this information is then, jumping on to the next one, is all summarized back into a whole bunch of kind of thinned points or thinned attribution points, which we can then use to kind of give you that understanding of the span itself. So every point within every tree, within every category, is assigned a point, and so you can start looking at, okay, what does the shape of the vegetation look like? How many different categories does the vegetation fall into? What is the expected growth? Maybe if we cut it once this year, in 2 years' time, it will have grown X amount, and you can start looking at rules for kind of planning that in. And also allows you to kind of, instead of traditionally LiDAR was actioned kind of on a per point basis or on a kind of a per chainage level, this is all tagged back to the span or the canopies that the information was kind of pulled from. And that allows you to kind of group that information together to action the work. All right, over to you, George.
Thank you, Andy. And let me get back to presenting here. Okay, hopefully everybody can see my screen. So, okay, so in terms of what Andy just went through, it's super critical, obviously, to source the data and to understand, you know, here's what our situation is. But, you know, LiDAR is a deluge of information. And the first stop that it makes in our solution is to put it in GIS. It's to bring it into GIS, make it usable from there. And once it's in GIS, it becomes then something that the rest of the solution, which is foundationally based on Cityworks and ArcGIS, we're able to act upon, okay? And so that highly intelligent GI attributes that Andy mentioned, all of that comes in straight through to the GIS at that point. And once we bring it in, we can take it to its first destination, which is the program optimizer. The program optimizer is a configured, a good way to contextualize it is a configured Cityworks analytics, where we have defined predetermined programs that have already come configured, pre-cooked with all the various information that you need to track based on cost, based on risk, based on, you know, the kind of voltage the lines carry, proximity of trees, and you can even see there, when we bring the information into GIS and therefore into Cityworks, we can actually start to see what are the trees that are in close proximity, signaled by red, medium, yellow, and okay or green. And, you know, from there, start to slice and dice the information as needed. So we have a trimming program, visual scoping program. These are just some examples. There are more than this. Hazard tree inspection program, and of course an audit program. And the objective here is that once we get the information in and start making it usable and understanding it and whatnot, we can script out the following actions within Cityworks or within the manager part of the solution, again, foundationally based in Cityworks. So once we have done that, scripted them out of here, what we can bring in, and this is totally configurable and flexible, are either inspections or work orders or both. And all of that comes in already assigned to the various tree canopies so that they're ready to go. So the next part of this should be very familiar to many of you. What we're looking at here is those foundational maps, of course, that make up our data set. But you see there are all these various Cityworks screens that, again, are pre-configured and pre-cooked to serve the needs of this workflow of vegetation management. So we have a nice overview. It comes in, all your inspections, all your work orders are already there in event layers and whatnot. You can interact with them. You can group them under projects and assign them. You can report. either costs or see trends and whatnot on how you're completing your work. There's of course cost tracking, so we can set up estimates on the work that we're doing and then track and trend that against what are our actuals, the actual time. And of course the solution, the significant part of the solution is being able to use field mobility, so you can deploy it to not just your internal staff to be able to take the system into the field and leverage it, but also contractors, right? Because you have a lot of contractors that are out there that are doing this sort of work. It's hugely beneficial for everybody to be going in and working on this information together and providing it into one system of record. The nice thing is as you know, we can segment those contractors from the rest, so we can give them just the assignments. And the other benefit, of course, with the field solution is that it's disconnected. So all that data that was sourced through LiDAR and it ultimately found its way into GIS, all of your work, all of your inspections, everything can be out into the field, disconnected. You don't need a live connection to be able to use it. Okay, so just some conclusions here and we'll wrap up. This is a new solution, but Cityworks and Trimble have been enabling vegetation management solutions for a long, long time. And we have a whole host of customers that we've engaged in the United States and also more widely around the world. So our technology is proven, and any one of those customers would be great resources for you that we could facilitate a reach out to, so you could connect with them and learn more. Every network that's out there obviously is different, but what we can do is we can help you build a business case. We have a great ROI calculator that we can work with you to establish what your business case ought to be and what your savings will be. A lot of different things go into establishing that, but we can work with you to establish and to get that from you. And then from there, make the case internally. And then finally, just some thoughts here. Definitely feel free to encourage us to perform this ROI case. Let us walk you through the solution, give you a product demo so you can experience it, and engage with us and engage with our partners who are supporting the solution to bring it in and give you a view. And I think with that, we'll open it up to any questions. Stephen Page, I'm hoping you can maybe help us out with that.
Glad to. I'm not seeing any questions in the chat. I don't know if there simply aren't any, or if I'm just not seeing them.
Okay. Well, with that, we can wrap this up. And if you have any additional questions that come up after the fact or anything else that comes up, please hit Andy and me up at the email addresses you see there. And you can also visit our website where we have all this information available that walks you through it. Steve, I'll hand it back to you.
Okay, well, George and Andy, thank you very much. And everybody that attended, thanks for your time and your attention. Appreciate it. Looks like we're going to be able to wrap up a few minutes early, so we'll give you back about 5 minutes or so. Thanks, everybody.